Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and those who don't know what the hell you're yet. Hopalong PR here, and this is my video of why I think Final Fantasy 15 sucks huge old chodes. There are three main points that I want to discuss today. The first point is the plot. For this one, I will be using Legend of Heroes, Persona 5, and Final Fantasy 9 as examples of what it could have done. Alright, so Final Fantasy 15. You play the story of a little bitch chosen one who goes on a journey for reasons. Yeah, your dad sent you off in the first place, and essentially, you just go here to do this thing, go here to fight this base of evil dudes, meet a character that you only meet once or twice, and then you go to a different place, go to another different place, fight a quick time boss event, fight another quick time boss event, suffer through a dungeon that is fucking unbearable with one of your party members, and just from that on point, it's just like a walked hallway. People bitch about Final Fantasy 13 for this reason. Well, Final Fantasy 15 does it even worse. Alright, so a little more in detail with the plot. The plot focuses on Prince Noctis and his group of friends, which look like a metrosexual version of the Jonas Brothers. You can't deny that. And it's about his journey to become the quote-unquote chosen king. The introduction I gave to that is far more interesting than what it is. But essentially, yeah, you got to go across the land. The first thing you do is try to get on a boat to get to your wedding on time, which doesn't happen. From there on, you have to fight the evil empire, and it's only necessary to do it once. Just once in your hometown that's been invaded. Well, home country that's been invaded, I should say. So, do you think that, I don't know, should have more to do with that? Nah. Instead, the bulk of this game and where you get your hours of playtime comes from the side questing. I was known as the side quest king until this game came out. There are just so many fucking side quests in this game, dude, that just goes on forever and ever. It just doesn't end. Now that it necessarily isn't a terrible thing, but like I said earlier, it's where you get the bulk of your playtime from. Alright, so this is an actual rundown of the plot. You leave your hometown to go to a boat to get your wedding. Wedding doesn't pan out, so you go to a fort where the bad guys are, you destroy that fort. Then, you go to a city to meet a sister of one of your friends. You go on a little walking quest that's supposed to develop character, but I couldn't have been bothered to deal with that because Prince Noctis is a whiny little bitch. And from there on, you go onward to destroy another thing. Actually, no. You don't destroy another thing. You go to get your summons. The first one is Titan of Earth. Second one after that, and it's plot related, is Rahamut. Rahamut. The deity of thunder and lightning. From there, you go to a city that is clearly Venice, France. Well, not Venice, France. Venice, Italy. And deal with a quick time boss fight. See the love of Prince Noctis die. And from there, you go to the foreign land that it had invaded your capital. At one of this point, one of your friends, had their eyesight taken from them in a blast, so he's blind, and you have to tiptoe around and fucking wait for him to catch up with your group. I don't know why you need this or why it's important, but you do anyhow. From there, you board on a train and get you to the next event. One of your friends get lost in the mix-up, and yeah. You go to the enemy capital, you fuck shit up. There's a time gap where Prince Noctis is part of the crystal for 10 years. From there, you go on to fight the main villain of the game who had taken your homeland as his capital. It might sound interesting on the surface, but no. If I had played this game through just doing the main quest, I could have probably beaten it in under 10 hours. And for a Final Fantasy game, that's just poor. And let's look at plot for this. Well, plot and character development, because it tries to develop characters so badly, but it fails on so many levels. For example, one of your friends, Gladios, is supposed to be the boot up the prince's ass, but he doesn't understand the concept of mourning. When the prince lost the love of his life, Gladios was just basically saying, hey, get the fuck over it. You don't need time to mourn, you're a king. Just do the thing. From there, another one of your friends is apparently, and I had no idea this was a thing, taken away and was taken back to the enemy capital where he apparently was born, because he's not a human per se. He's a not lifeless being, but a being that did not come from natural birthing circumstances. And we're supposed to care about that because his intro scene back is, I'm sorry, this is the real me. I'm not human. I'm one of them. But to be honest, that never came into discussion. All right, let's look at some other RPGs that came out. Let's take a look at Persona 5. Persona 5, even if you do the main storyline only, had all of its characters take a prominent role in the story and how they played it. Final Fantasy 15 does not. The closest character that felt to being human was Ignis, a person who, well, I can relate him to the Big Bang Theory Sheldon better than any other character. He felt the most human. If you have a robotic fucking, what's the word I'm gonna use? Autistic, it might be close to it, because Ignis has very fond skills in A, literature, and B, food. He is the very smart one of the group, but he was rigid and built like a machine, and his dialogue reflects that. He's not a character, but he's the closest thing that we have to a character. Gladios and Prompto being the one that I told you about earlier, about not being a human, just don't feel important at all. And I feel sad because Prompto's big reveal that he's not human is supposed to be impactful and stuff, but at no point in any of the game had that come up before. Nothing before that. All right, let's take a look at Final Fantasy 9 compared to Final Fantasy 15. Now, as many of you may know, I love Final Fantasy 9. It's my favorite game of all times. And that's because it focused on character development. Throughout the game, we see all the characters come and go and deal with their personal demons and overcome them at the end of the game. Vivi comes to accept that he was mass-produced, much like Prompto, but he is going to make the most of it, goddammit. And throughout the game, we see that. We see him struggle with not being something that's natural. But you know what? That doesn't fucking matter to him. At the end of the day, he just wants to do what's right. Similar to Prompto, but with Vivi, we got to see his struggle. Prompto just, I don't know. We saw the end of his struggle. We never did we see Prompto struggle with the concept of not being human before the fact that we rescued him at the end of the game. If you're gonna do something like that, make us feel like we should care about the characters. And with Persona 5, that was a main character, I should say, that had a dialogue tree. And even in that dialogue tree, it built more character than Prince Noctis. Before the 10-year gap, Prince Noctis was just a whiny little bitch, and no one could say otherwise. I dare you to say otherwise. You might say, yeah, he lost his father, he lost his girlfriend. Give the kid a break. In which I say, fucking develop Gladios to give him a break. Gladios doesn't give him time to mourn, so why should I? Gladios is another character I want to talk about. He is a static character throughout the game, and static characters are not good. Static means that it does not change over the course or given time of an event. And if you're gonna have an RPG game with you and your quote-unquote best friends, then you might want to have your characters go through different arcs of development, not already developed as they should be. The only one that goes through any sort of arc is Ignis, who loses his sight because he's, I don't know. It never really says what he did, but he sacrificed his eyesight for the Prince Noctis. To which I say, Ignis, you're good. Everybody else, you're fucked. Let's see, what else do I want to bitch about this game's plot? I already covered... Oh, I just want to compare to this. Persona 5. You're a powerless basic person in the system of Japan's government, but you overcome your odds and you never once bitch about your problems. In Final Fantasy IX, Zidane is the hero, and he is always chipper and, well, mostly chipper and pleasant and inspiring. And he does go through a trying arc where he discovers his origin. But you know what? He struggles through it. He fights through it. And with the help of his friends, he becomes better than what he was. Final Fantasy 15 does not. They solve everything with a 10-year time jump where apparently, thanks to the 6 Eldians, that would be Rahamut, Titan, Shiva, Bahamut, Ifrit, and Leviathan. Yeah, Leviathan. God damn it. That was a quick time boss fight that I could not even remember to save my life. Kind of just goes to show you how unimportant it is. But yeah, I don't know where I was going with that one. Thanks to the 6 Eldians, Noctis has a change of heart, becomes a cold person who knows what to do. That is Deus Machina if I have ever seen it. Also, this is just a little side note, why the fuck do you think your characters need to look like fucking metrosexual Jonas Brothers? Prince Noctis looks so much better when he has facial hair after the 10-year time jump. Also, 10 years, and that's really all the facial hair you have? Really? If I let my beard grow for 10 months, I will have something that just goes down to my chest. I don't know. Maybe manliness and facial hair have coincided with each other. Maybe he finally became a man because he has facial hair. I don't know. But why can't we have Prince Noctis look like the rough and gruff version of himself at the end of the game, at the beginning of the game? Personally, and I'm a straight male, he looks better with facial hair. We don't need to have pretty boys. We need men. Strong men. All right, so next thing I want to bitch about is the open world mechanics. Final Fantasy 15 operates on an open world, which kind of dies near the end of the game because it switches from an open world to a linear plot. I even see in a Game Informer magazine that I have that the designers kind of lament the fact that they switch between the two. And you know what? I will give them a pass on the end of the game for now. But they realize there are shortcomings with that one. So at the end of the game, when it switches from open world to linear, I'm not going to say anything. They already know. But it's not a true open world, despite what you may think. So with the open world games that I'm going to, what's the word I'm going to use? Cross-examine with, I'm going to be using a game that came out after this release and before its release. Before its release was Fallout 3. After the release is Breath of the Wild. Now with open world system in Final Fantasy 15, yeah, sure, it's open, but it's too big and your characters don't move fast enough. Through all the things, you have a road that you have to drive your car across to get to where you want to in a decent amount of time. And even, okay, it does give you quick travel, so thank God for small miracles. So with that, you can get to quest events fairly decent if you've explored the world. If you've explored the world. However, a lot of times you have to go explore everything first before you can quick travel anywhere. And you don't move fast, A, on your feet, B, on a chocobo, and C, in your car. And you might think that this is just a nitpicky thing for me, but no. They give you skill tree options that will compensate you for your time spent in the car on chocobos. They know it sucks. They know that. That's why they did that, to help mitigate the rage of that. For Fallout, you can travel across the vast wasteland and you could still make decent amount of time across everything on foot. This game gives you 2 alternate methods of transportation. Chocobos, which will help you traverse plains that your car can't go through, but it's not exactly the fastest. Or your car that's stuck on roads throughout the capital. That brings another thing. Can you really consider it an open world game where your characters are stuck going on roads? No, you fucking can't. If you force your players to go on a road for the fastest form of transportation, then you can't call it an open world. That's just an open hallway. Yeah, Final Fantasy 13 at least was blatant in its hallway use. This game gives the deception of, hey, this is open world. And while it does give points for, I don't know, you can run into some wildlife here and there, have some gathering spots here and there, but largely, it's just an empty world. Fallout and Breath of the Wild were big worlds, but they were dense. You could always see something, at least in the distance, of what was going. And if you couldn't, it wouldn't take long for you to find it. Final Fantasy 15, their car rides, you can see in minutes how long it takes. I'm not talking about in-game minutes too. No, I'm talking about real-world minutes. 7 minutes, 6 minutes, 5 minutes for car rides where you can't do fucking anything. Just what the fuck were you even thinking? Also, with that, I want to point out a huge fucking flaw and point of wrath. Open world is nice. And it even uses I don't want to say real time, but it uses time passing, like day in the game and night in the game, to instigate certain plots and certain enemies, which in Fallout and Breath of the Wild, they both have a mechanic that lets you pass time without you actually sitting around and doing nothing. Now, if you're a smart person, you automatically know that that's not the case for Final Fantasy 15. You have to stand around outside of any pause menu and wait for the time to pass. If you're gonna have if you're gonna have time-based events, then fucking give us an option to pass the time in an instant. Fallout did that with its waiting menu. And Breath of the Wild did that with its camp. Why the fuck do you think that you can't do that? Now I get that the fact that Breath of the Wild came out after Final Fantasy 15. Fallout was far before that. So they fucked up on that one. And yes, they say, oh, go do quests or, hunting in the meantime. You know what's funny? Remember I said that the bulk of this game comes in side quests? I did all the side, not all the side quests, but a vast majority of them. And guess what? You can never get to where you wanted on time. Because even the fast travel fucks with your time a little bit. You can't, if you're going to make your player wait on time, then give them an opportunity to pass that time. You do not make them wait. All right, open world mechanics. Breath of the Wild and Fallout were both dense in what they could offer. Now you might say, yeah, Fallout came out before and it's a smaller world, but you know what? That doesn't matter. Bigger doesn't always amount to better. It's what you do with it that counts. And Fallout was dense. Dense with things to do, enemies to fight, and just anything in the middle. Gathering points too. But with Final Fantasy 15, there were maybe, let's see, Capital City, no, that's Crown City, Hammerhead, Bar 1, Bar 2, Chocobo, Seaside Resort, Big Fucking City, and Lighthouse. Those were the places that plot mattered most and that where you were required to go for, anything. And you could quick travel here and there, yes, but besides those things, there really was not much. Sure, there were dungeons here and there, but you don't have to have dungeons as a separate entity to your map. That's what they did too, because you could go into a volcano, you could go into a marshland, you could go into a mine, you can go to an abandoned fucking castle. And they were all separate from the map. Fallout at least had the dignity to, include things on the map. And Breath of the Wild, if you want to call those as the divine mechs, sure, that's fine. But they only had 4 of those. The rest of the map was open to explore at any time. And they always had things for you to do. Whether it be hunt monsters, open treasure chests, figure out puzzles, or or you could even terraform the environment in Breath of the Wild. You see a tree, you can knock that tree down and get goods of it. And you know what? The goods that you got from that tree are important to other things in the game. That's another thing about this open world. Even though it may be open world, it doesn't follow by the same rules. In open world games, what you do on the side directly impacts things that you can do in the main game, or things in the main game that maybe in the major cities. Now I hear what you say, oh, well you're just comparing these things to major cities in other games. And you know what? That's true. In the major cities of Final Fantasy 15, you could talk to a tipster, get hunting advice from a tipster, or eat whatever they had to cook. But you know what? Here's the secret. None of that matters to the main game. Yeah, that's true. Say, for example, in Breath of the Wild, what you cooked mattered to you because you could use it. In Final Fantasy 15, yeah, you may get on a stat boost, but after a while, it passes. And yes, you might say, oh, that's just to make sure that, you don't do anything stupid and play the game so much on a set bonus. Which, fair, but if you're gonna have cooking as a main implement of the game, you should at least offer it to the player at any point in time. Not only when you have to set up camps in the wild. Also, that leads me to my next point. This game, it was the first game that I've ever played that made leveling up feel bland and unimportant. How you can fucking do that, I don't know. Take a certain special type of hell to make that happen. For this game, just in your mind, picture your favorite RPG game. Final Fantasy 7? Sure. Kingdom Hearts? Alright. I'll be using Final Fantasy 9. In any of those games, leveling up felt good because it was a direct result of you working hard, and the leveling up was a direct result of you working hard. In this game, their leveling up system is easily abusable. And if you haven't played Final Fantasy 15 and want to, here's my biggest advice for you. Do all the side quests you can before any major plot time, because they will force you to spend all your experience. Oh wait, what's that? Spend your experience? That's right. Final Fantasy 15 pools your experience together after you've done things and fight monsters. Never at any point is it directly referred to your character, which is interesting, yes. But there is a spot on the map where you can go and have all your experience that's pooled have a ×2 multiplier. That's right. So, say, for example, well, not for example, I did this. I got 100,000 experience just with side questing alone. And I went back to the ×2 spot to spend all my experience and got over 200,000 experience. That pushed me up and beyond 30 levels of what the level cap was at that point in time. I was level 62 at the time, and that was the level that I used throughout the game. At that point, I was strong enough to overcome anything, and that was very close. I don't want to say to the middle of the game, but at least a fourth of the way through. If you give your players the opportunity to wreck shit on that level so early on in the game, you do not respect them, and you do not respect your own game. Respect comes from working hard. And sure, you might say, oh, you worked hard to get that 100,000 experience. No, I would work hard to get that 200,000 experience, not me abusing the system. And you say, oh, well, just don't abuse the system. No, if it gives you that opportunity, use it. This follows close with a theory that's called dominant strategy, i.e. where you give your players an optimal decision or an optimal path, they will do that. That's what this game did. And with that, it ruined leveling up, a thing that I never thought could be possible. All right, so this has been a rant. So let me just wrap up my thinking with each point. The plot/character development. There was nothing really in any game. We were supposed to feel sad for Prince Noctis when these things happened to him, not see him build up to these things in between, build his character, build the relationship with him and his friends. No, we were just expected and forced to deal with this as if we cared. We were not giving any source material to actually care about him. And Gladio ruined everything about his character by saying, "You're a king. Fucking suck it up." No. There is such a thing called the mourning period. Gladio, just because a king is a king doesn't mean he's a person. People need time to mourn over the fact that they're loved ones. You can't expect Noctis, who is a little bitch baby even before this happened, to overcome it instantly. And also, the main villain of the game, he knows the main villain of the game at every point in time. And while this might not be anything new, like with Sephiroth, Kuja, with those two, this didn't feel like, oh, well, at least these guys were fighting to do what they wanted. No, the main enemy in this game already knew what he wanted, how to do it, and he was already there. In fact, the entire point of his character was to lead Prince Noctis to get stronger to the point where he could be at his full strength with the crystal's blessing, just in the hopes that he could take the crystal and Noctis down. Also, with the open world mechanics, if you're gonna have an open world, fine. Make it more dense. Make it easier to traverse, because the car parts even made everything just last longer. And you think if you're in car, you'd be blasting from point to point, which they did give you the opportunity to listen to other game soundtracks in the meantime, which was nice because as soon as I found out where to buy Final Fantasy IX's soundtrack, I listened to it full time. Also worth noting, Final Fantasy 15 soundtrack, almost non-existent. Also, there was a cover of Stand By Me by Florence and the Machine as the end game soundtrack when the titles are rolling. Now, I only hope that this is for the US and UK versions or any English-spoken nations. I hope that it did justice in the Japan release, but you can't do that. Final Fantasy is a series that is very well known for their soundtracks. If you're gonna use a cover of a song by a band, I don't know. You've done something wrong or you've been lazy. Back to open world mechanics. If you're gonna have time-based events, give the player options to pass the time. Also with open world, just make sure that if you have an open world, make it dense or make it small enough where you can pass through a lot of things in a decent amount of time. No one wants to run for 10 minutes before anything happens. And yeah, they give you opportunities later in the game to summon enemies to fight or to call a chocobo. But if you need to call something in to make your game better, you've done something wrong as a developer. Oh yeah, going back with the plot and character development, none of the characters, aside from Ignis, I felt anything for during their plight and fight throughout the main game. Noctis, who lost his father, lost his girlfriend, and was forced to become the chosen king, didn't feel anything for, because at the 10-year time gap, his character was forcefully changed. And there was a scene at the end of the game, actually past the end boss, that would have been fantastic to have as a character development before the main boss and before the end dungeon. If they had stuck that in there, it would have been a fantastic case of character development. He comes to admit that his friends are like brothers to him and how important they are. But we don't see that until the end. Past the end, actually. Past the title screen. We see that screen as an end game bonus. An end game bonus for characters in the game that we're supposed to care about. Do any of you see anything wrong with that there? If not, then hey, you might be to the point where you can actually enjoy Final Fantasy 15 in its entirety. Good for you. I can't. I am ruined with such games like Legend of Heroes, Persona 5, Breath of the Wild, whose games always made the main hero important. and your actions that you did actually matter. This game is very close to Tales of Zestiria when it comes to plot. You do the things because you're told to, not because you want to, or even because you care about learning about the world or trying to fix the things that's wrong in the world. No, you do that because you're told to, not because you want to, because you're told to. If you don't want your characters to do anything aside from what they're told to, that's not the point of any game. You're supposed to see your characters overcome hardships, overcome these difficult things, because that's part of their character arc, not because you're told to do that. I'm rambling on that point. Okay, open world mechanic. You need to add a wait for time if you're going to make time-based events. There are numerous events where you have to wait for daytime or nighttime before things pop up. And sure, the tipsters might give you the chance to wait till nighttime to make these things happen, but if you're going to have dungeons way out of the way open up for nighttime events, give us something to pass the time with. Because I know that I spent time in real life playing a different game because I was waiting for Final Fantasy XV's time-based bullshit to open up. If you have to have your game mitigated by another game or any other things in between, you've done something fundamentally wrong. And the last point, if leveling up doesn't feel fun, you can have you should never have your experience build up. Experience is by definition experience. The things that you gain from hardships, from trials, from anything you've overcome in real life, in real time. That is the The definition for experience is 1. Practical contact with and observance of facts or events directly. If you gain experience by your events, you better feel the experience of such events. 2. The knowledge or skill acquired by experience over a period of time, especially gained in a particular profession by someone at some work. Hunting monsters, doing side quests, experience. 3. An event or occurrence that leaves an impression on someone. Yeah, nothing says this is pooled together. You feel this as you go. And as a verb, experience, encounter or undergo an event or occurrence. Or feel, as in an emotion, not as a pool. Experience is one of those things you gain from going through whatever it is that you went through, not building up as one thing. Sure, you can say you got experience by undergoing a chain of events, but you get that experience as you go. You do not have that as a mechanic where players can abuse the living fuck out of it and make themselves overpowered before the middle of the game up until the end game. I was level 62 before I had to leave the home continent. And if people know out there that once you leave the home continent, it's like the second half of the game. Yeah, I was already leveled up and overpowered by that point. What the fuck? Seriously, by that point, the experience that I got from other quests at that point beyond that didn't even matter. It honestly didn't matter. And if you don't make the battles that you go through in the final dungeons matter, why? For what reason? Final dungeons are supposed to be perilous, but you're supposed to get stronger as a result. And sure, you can say, oh, well, you're supposed to feel good for overcoming these trials at a low level, and people have done, as an example, people have done level 1 runs of Final Fantasy IX. Yes, fucking good for you, but that's because they've abused the system more than I have. And if you want us to abuse the system for making low-level runs, then I have no qualms in overpowering everything in a high-level run. Okay, at this point, we've gone over 40 minutes of me rambling. I don't know what it'll end up at as I edit things down. But yeah, the plot and character development didn't matter in the long run because everything was forced on you. You never felt a building force or you never felt growth from these characters. There was just forced on upon you. Noctis. His character growth came from a 10-year gap that we weren't even a part of. Gladios. He stayed the main character throughout. That should never, ever happen in an RPG, a role-playing game. You're supposed to overcome hardships and adversities, not stay the same. Prompto. While he did come to his own demons that he wasn't human, before the end of the game, we never were aware of that. We never understood his plight and his struggle with being something that wasn't human other until the end point of the game. And Ignis, the most unhuman character of the characters, was the most human because he overcame his hardship of losing his sight as a direct result of serving Prince Noctis. When you make the autistic character the main person of who overcomes struggles and difficulties, you've done something wrong with your normal characters. And I say autistic in an unoffensive way. I say autistic because there are certain social cues that he doesn't quite get. Look at Sheldon for Big Bang Theory and you'll see exactly what I mean. I do not mean it in an offensive way because Ignis and Sheldon both are far better at what they love, better than anybody else. Sheldon has physics, Ignis has cooking. They are fantastic at those and nothing can stop them. The open world mechanics, I think I've already bitched about, and leveling up system. You were the first game that didn't make leveling up feel good. Even in games like Final Fantasy VIII, where everything scaled with your level, it still felt good to level up. Not this game. And the reason I went on a 40+ minute rant about this game is because I spent 45 hours playing this game. And this is the first game that I've ever played that made me honestly regret and I feel like I've wasted all that time playing the game. If you did that to your game and to your players, you fucked up. Well, this will be interesting to see how I deal with this in post, but yeah, I think I've said all I needed to. I think I've gone over the point of what I've said and what I've needed to. Final Fantasy 15, not a good game. Final Fantasy 13 with its forced hallways at least made the game interesting with its characters, their plights, and everything. Final Fantasy 15, open world, quote unquote, gave excuse to not feel anything about the main characters because the bulk of the fucking game came from side quests. If you look at any other game ever, the bulk of the game came from the plot. Breath of the Wild did a better open world game than that. And sure, you might have to go here and there for their plots, but you know what? You traversed Hyrule fast enough. And when you got to said cities, you learned about what happened to these peoples and why they were suffering. And you got to fix it. Never at any point did you fix anything in this game. Even when you fought the main bad guys from their posts. No, there was nothing. Nothing at all for you to feel good about. You just did it to do a thing. Not because it had a direct consequence on the world. Even with Fallout, your actions mattered. In the open world, Final Fantasy 15 did not give you any choices at all. And even in the one case, I could say, it did give you an option because there was a cool mechanic introduced, I'd say halfway through the game's plot, where you had to negotiate with a foreign diplomat for the safety of the people. That was a cool mechanic. I was hoping there'd be more of that. As the ruler of a nation, you would think that you care about the people of the world more to the point where you could say, okay, let's talk about this to the leaders for the people. No, it only happened once and it never came up again. Jesus fucking Christ. I'm looking at the timestamp right now and it's 46 minutes and 20 seconds. I think it better end this now. Actually, do I want to make sure that I've said everything that's wrong with this game. Oh yeah, Final Fantasy X might be the game that turned me off to Final Fantasies after I beat it, but that's just because of how powerful it was and its ending. For all you who've played and beaten Final Fantasy X, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But the end of this game does not feel good at all. Doesn't even matter at all. Because this is the bad thing about the Chosen, quote unquote, storyline. Chosen often has to sacrifice themselves. So everything they've gone to is supposed to make the player feel something, but Final Fantasy 15 didn't make me feel a goddamn thing aside from annoyed. Because remember I said earlier that Ignis lost his sight? Yeah, you had to handhold Ignis practically through dungeons when he was blind, and that dramatically increased the time spent in each dungeon. Just because you had to make sure that you weren't gonna go ahead of him too much, and he didn't fall behind too much. You want to get through a dungeon as fast as you can, because dungeon, by definition, is not someplace you want to be. It felt extra tedious and annoying having to wait for your blind party member to follow you. Why? For what reason was that necessary? At that point, okay, I could see one dungeon, but not more than that. If it had just been one dungeon, I would be fine. I would say, okay, yeah, it's a powerful learning experience about what the consequences are, but not more than that. Not more than that, especially at the end of the game, if you just make his blindness not matter at all. Yeah, cute little thing too. At the end of the game, when the world is covered in darkness, Ignis has no problem acting like an actual, fully functional human. His reasoning is pretty sound logic, actually. Because when Noctis has appeared before the 10-year gap, darkness fell upon the land, and there were 10 solid years of darkness. But Ignis made a living for himself hunting and cooking, and he said, I'm more used to the darkness than you are. To which I say, goddamn Ignis, you are the saving grace of this game. Thank you for all you done. And that's why they added a DLC purely for you. But other than that, this game fails on the plot, on the character development, on the open world system, and on leveling up. Don't get me started on the QuickTime boss fights. The end boss fight is essentially just you pressing and mashing circle. Oh, yeah, battle, the last thing. So in this game, when your character's health falls to 0, it doesn't mean they're dead. It means you just give them a fucking item so that we can get back up and fight. Sure, there is another case where they fall down to 0 and they stay at 0, but give them a Phoenix down. They're back and at full force. Items in this game give you godlike powers. Even at the end boss, I used items and made this game my bitch. I suppose that might well go on about the extra dungeon. Costelmark Dungeon is a dungeon where you go down and fight harder and harder monsters until you reach a certain point. At which point, there are 4 transportation systems, yeah, I'll go with that you're supposed to go through. And they're all random. Now, that wouldn't be bad if you just did so many random events like that and got to the end. No, you have to be on the lookout for a circular mark to take you to the proper end of the dungeon. Otherwise, you just keep on traversing the same old places over and over again, never knowing what you should have done. There's no intuition there. There's no anything. You're just supposed to magically know that you're supposed to be looking for a little circle on the ground to take you to the proper path. Bonus dungeon. It's supposed to be perilous, yes, but it's supposed to feel fair as well. It's supposed to feel like all the work you've done during the main game has led you up to prepare for this trial to overcome. And I did this dungeon before a lot of the plot of the game. I did this before the halfway mark. If you take out the bonus dungeon before the halfway mark of your plot, what the fuck is wrong with you? You're not giving the player anything to look forward to the end game, to the post game. And that's one thing I can never, well, those are 4 things I can never forgive. The plot, actually 5 things. Let's make it 5 things. The plot, the character development, the open world system, the leveling up system, and lack of diverse endgame plot or side quests. Jesus fucking Christ, 52 minutes in. Well, that's just how it goes with a fucking game that's terrible as Final Fantasy 15. Now, I do want to say that Final Fantasy 15's creators and development team did realize that there was a lot of flaws that they did, and the game suffered because of that. I'm not gonna bash them for that entirely. They know they did certain things wrong, and I feel like because they did those certain things wrong, that led to other things. If you take a look at the game, it's an uncohesive mess. There are certain elements as open world, yeah. There are certain elements that are linear, yeah. There are certain elements that are hallways, yeah. But you can't have those all the same. And one final comparison between this game and another open world game. I'll be using Breath of the Wild for these 5 mechanics. Plot. You got to see presumably you didn't go straight to Ganon. You got to see the plot of the world that unfurled. Prince Noctis' journey was that of a whiny little bitch chosen, whereas Link's was the champion of Hyrule, and he had to overcome these trials and hardships across the land. And even when you got to the dungeons in Final Fantasy 15, they weren't anything too terrible. When you got to the dungeons in Breath of the Wild, they weren't anything too terrible, but you were ready for them. Dungeons in Final Fantasy 15, you were either underleveled, overleveled at that point. Character development. Final Fantasy 15, there might have been like 2 considerable character development points for Prince Noctis. One, when he went on a quote-unquote date with Gladios' sister, as well as seeing his girlfriend die. With Breath of the Wild and Link, you got to see all of if you chose everything, you got to see his memories of the past and what he meant to Princess Zelda. Open world mechanics. You could fast travel in both of them, but Breath of the Wild knew that you needed your world dense and you needed to give your players an opportunity to wait time if you're going to have time-based events. And the time-based events in Breath of the Wild were purely bonus. They weren't mandatory. Leveling up. Although, Final Fantasy 15 did give you level ups, you never feel like you got stronger as a result. No, you just feel like you got more health. Where in Breath of the Wild, you never leveled up at all. But through playing the game, you got better at the game itself. You got better things to arm yourself for the game. You felt stronger in a game where you did not level up compared to one where you did. And post-game? Is that what it'd say? Let's do post-game, yeah. Well, Final Fantasy 15 did not offer you anything. Breath of the Wild just didn't offer you anything too, but you felt like your actions across the land could be better exemplified and better represented through your actions. Final Fantasy 15, you just felt like you're doing things because you're doing things. Breath of the Wild, you felt like you're doing things because you wanted to help people or to solve problems. Jesus fucking Christ. You know what? Fuck it. I'm almost at an hour, so I might as well say what I want. Well, might as well go on for an hour, because why the fuck not? Final Fantasy 15 is the first game that I've ever played that I felt like I've wasted hours of my life. I've played the sequel of Tales of Symphonia, and while I didn't play it for that long, sure, I still felt like I got something out of it. I felt like I was aware of why it sucked and why people didn't like it. Final Fantasy 15 was under the facade that it was a good game throughout and made you care, quote unquote. But here's the thing, I never cared. I never cared about Noctis and his journey to become king. Never cared about the sacrifice the king did at the beginning of the game to save his son. I never cared about his girlfriend, Lady Lunafea, sacrificing her life for Prince Noctis. I never cared about Gladios' firm boot up Noctis' ass at all because he did not understand human emotion of mourning. I did not care for Prompto's miraculous discovery and revealing that he was not human and he did not come from anything normal. No. The one character I felt for was Ignis, because throughout the game, up until the point he lost his eyes, he was a good character. He was the driver of the car. And once he lost his sight, I was afraid that I was losing my driver and was losing a good character. I don't know. If you make your player feel like they've wasted hours of their life playing your game, you have fundamentally failed your character. I mean, not your character, your players. If you failed your players, then give up your game development, especially if you're going to be a AAA game. Final Fantasy is a series where we've come to expect great things, not subpar things. Sure, I can even say that Final Fantasy XIII's plot was more interesting than this. And Final Fantasy XIII is a game that's panned for its hallway review. And they might have tried to remedy this with this game, but did not happen. Not at all. I've always felt like I was forced on the path. Not because I wanted to, but because I was forced to. That's the difference between this and like Breath of the Wild or Fallout. In those games, you felt like you wanted to go to those places when you were ready. You were still able to follow and explore the path that you wanted to up at any point of this time. And you know what? We were rewarded in those games with experience, with weapons, with items. And in those games, those things mattered. But in this, not so much. If you played Final Fantasy 15, you know the only things that really mattered were your items. You could replenish at any point at any item store in time. You did not have to wait for any proper moments. No. If you had the money, you had the opportunity to make your characters godlike because you were using items to save them so much. Oh yeah, speaking of using things, I was reminded about the battle system of this game. All right, so in every other previous Final Fantasy game, there were magic systems in place and in use for the player. In this one, there were no set mages, no such spellcasters. No, you had to A, make all the spells that you wanted, and B, in those options of making the spells that you wanted, you had to set aside different things for why you wanted those spells to work. There were things like quadcast, quintcast, tricast, doublecast that allowed you to cast spells in succession to each other. That should not be a thing if you have a mage. Mage will summon those things and use those things whenever they so damn well please. But here comes the things that really get weird. There are things like kill cast, curse cast, and fail cast that added extra elements to magic. Magic that we'd been used to using at any point in time in Final Fantasies. Why the fuck do you make magic the thing that is universally unusable and usable at the same time? There's no special mages. Everybody could use magic. And magic affected your players and the enemies equally. Well, not equally, but it affected both of them. Sure, it's a nice hazard mechanic, but I don't care. And there's no healers in this game either. I mean, granted, you feel like God using your items, but there's also a cure cast, which cures a player as it harms its enemies. That's a special spell in and of itself, not an attack spell. There are no white mages. There are no black mages. There are no red mages. Blue mage is Ignis with his cooking. But other than that, this game's magic falls exceptionally short. You don't feel good using it. You feel like you're abusing the system using it. Because magic is very powerful and will often deal 9,999 damage to your foes in a single blast. You feel like you're using it to cheat out of a battle, not because it's a part of the battle system. Okay, so fucking hell. Over an hour at this point. God damn it, I've been over an hour at this point? Oh, fuck. Wow. Well, if I've had the stamina and steam to bitch up about a game for over an hour, please do me the favor and do not play this game. Fuck. For fuck's sake, don't do it. You don't deserve that type of sadness and waste of time in your life. Play a good game. Play Chrono Cross. Play Fallout 4. Play Borderlands 2. Anything else. Final Fantasy 15. Play Final Fantasy 14. Play Final Fantasy 13. Play Final Fantasy 12. Yes, I know Final Fantasy 11 and 14 were both MMOs. But you know what? God damn it. Those games probably made the player feel important or special. And in this game, you never felt like that. You felt like you're just told things to do, and you did them because you were told to, Not because you wanted to, or because you felt like you were the chosen one. No, because you were told to. So that's why if I had to give this game a rating, I'd give it a 1 out of 10. Don't make your players do something because you tell them to. Make them do that because they want to. Allow them a game where they can do things with ease and in good time, not where they have to wait around and lollygag and just wait and hope for things to happen fast. This game's plot is a mess too. I think I already mentioned that. But you get introduced to characters that don't even matter. The Dragon Knight, Ariana, Talcott, your little, I don't want to say boy toy because that sounds really wrong, but the little child that grows up into a truck driver. Sid is in this game, but he doesn't feel important, really. Sure, he helps you out a few times, but he doesn't feel like he plays a main part. His niece, Sydney, more important, more fan service than anything else, though. And that's the thing. This game introduced fan service to a Final Fantasy title. I'm not used to that. I didn't like that. Granted, yeah, sure. Boobs big, face pretty, but still. I don't want that from a Final Fantasy game. I want compelling gameplay, compelling plot, and something that makes me want to play. I can say that I beat this game, and I felt like I wasted my time with this. That's why I went on this tirade. Because this game is bad. Because I felt like I wasted my time. I've never felt that way before in any game. Final Fantasy 15, you are abysmally terrible in what you did, and I hate you for that. But that's just my opinion, and I think I've gone over enough of my time to say why I did and did not like this game for said reasons. So thank you everybody for listening. If you have anything you want to say, maybe object with me, let me know down in the comments below. I'd be glad to listen to you. But until then, thank you for staying weird.